Hello everyone, it is Mistic, and welcome to Mistic Reacts. Today we are reacting to JCS, and as far as I know, this is not an AI voiceover this time, hopefully. But JCS is temporarily back with a new video that is quite a mouthful. Stay-at-home husband tries to act his way out of a murder charge. Oh, let's see how this one goes. Hopefully it is as good as some of the older JCS videos, and not like the AI one. Let's jump right into it.
According to CBS News, 50-year-old stay-at-home husband David Tronis desperately wanted to appear on reality television. In late April of 2018, he managed to secure himself a spot on the show Zombie House Flipping, where he would be featured renovating his newly bought house with his then-wife, 39-year-old financial consultant Shanti Cooper. The only problem was that Shanti wasn't nearly as interested in being on TV, so she refused to sign off on the program, which resulted in David beating and then strangling her to death in the early hours of the following morning. He called 911 roughly 12 hours later at 3:51 p.m.
Hello? She stopped breathing and trying to do CPR. I can't. Okay, listen to me. Can you tell me what your address is?
Police and paramedics soon arrived at the residence, where they were met with a hysterical David performing CPR on Shanti in the living room. His immediate explanation was that he found her lying unconscious in a partially filled bathtub, bleeding from the nose and mouth. He was then taken to the police station as a witness, where they swapped out his blood-stained clothing for a custody suit. He was also given a water, a blanket, and a box of tissues, then taken to room 6, where he was reassured that someone would be right with him to answer his questions, which wasn't entirely true. He was left in there by himself for 4 hours and 9 minutes before he knocked on the door to use the bathroom.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to bother you. May I go to the bathroom?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
It wouldn't take a genius to recognize that David's behavior is already suspicious. Ask yourself if you'd be acting like this in the scenario he's claiming to be in. You find your significant other unresponsive in a bathtub. Then police leave you in a cold room for 4 hours without telling you anything. You might just ask someone, what the hell is going on? Or what the status of your wife is, and you probably wouldn't be all that polite and apologetic for just trying to use the bathroom. He returns from the bathroom and sits there for another 3 minutes. The detectives will now enter the room to commence the interrogation. The time is 9:08 p.m.
Hey. I'm Detective Sprague. Can I get your first name?
First name is David.
David? Okay. We're gonna grab another chair.
Okay.
Did you need something?
I was just asking for a bottle of water.
Okay, so we can grab you.
Thank you.
Have you been to the restroom?
I just wanted to.
Also, if you take the water, they can DNA sample it. But I don't think they really need the DNA in this case, because it's probably pretty obvious.
Okay, how about anything else? Anything else?
I'm starving, a cracker or just something.
You would
just
need
with some
both.
salt, right?
Did you eat lunch? I did not eat lunch.
Why salt?
Don't be fooled by the detective's disposition. They're already certain that David has committed either first or second-degree murder, but they don't quite have enough evidence to place him under arrest, which is why they need a confession. David, at this moment, is still free to walk out of that police station, so the detectives will keep the tone sympathetic and non-confrontational for the time being to keep him on that chair. They'll afford him the false belief they are buying into his act as the grieving husband, but as soon as he gives them his initial version of events, the pressure will rapidly accelerate, in a manner that David is in no way anticipating.
What would you like to eat? And I'll run down.
Just something simple. Just like saltines or peanut butter crackers.
Anything like that? Okay, that's not a problem. We'll be right back.
Here's your water, buddy.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I can take that one.
Yes.
Okay, things. Okay, is that good?
Perfect.
Okay, all right. I'm with you. I haven't eaten since this morning. I'm sorry this is taking so long. You are David, I believe? Okay, all right. I'm Detective Teresa Sprague, and this is Detective Barb McClelland.
Hey.
First of all, on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department, we want to say how sorry we are for your loss.
So this is the first, out of a total 11, of David's fake cries. Their intensity level will peak about halfway through this video, during some of the more embarrassing performances you're ever likely to witness on the internet. But from that moment on, you'll notice these acts steadily diminish, as the detective makes it more and more abundantly obvious that she knows he's lying.
David, and also for everything that you're going through. I know this is very traumatic for you, okay?
They start by collecting David's basic
Yeah,
information.
that just seems
Okay, blonde or brown hair?
1968?
Okay.
Damn.
Hazel eyes, maybe?
I'll take Hazel.
Blue, hazel,
You'll
okay?
They're
take
dirty.
Hazel?
Yeah.
Okay.
What kind of-
Is there a home phone?
There is.
Okay.
I can't remember the last four digits. It's 407. The next three are easy. 704, the opposite. And I never call it.
The next three are 704?
It's 407, 704, and then I think it's 2808. It might be 2406.
Personally, I feel like if it was real, you would say you would want to get this over with as quick as possible to explain it. So you would just be, oh yeah, I have one, but I don't use it, and then just skip the number process and get on to explaining, why your wife might be dead. I don't know. That seems like the real action. Oh,
But I have it on my phone. I haven't. We've had it since we were at Briarcliff
And when did you move to Florida?
in 2013.
Okay.
About 5 months after I met Shanti.
Did you meet her here or there?
No, why?
You met online? Okay.
yeah, that is a really bad.
Can you tell me what
fake
year that
crime.
was?
It was 2013.
2013 is when you met online?
Yeah.
Okay. And about 5 months later, did you move here and move in with her, or just move here?
I'll try to be as accurate as possible. I believe it was the end of September.
So you guys knew each other approximately 5 years this month.
28.
I'd never been more in love. We were so happy.
Okay. If you don't, I know you've probably never been through anything like this in your life, okay? And I'm going to help you get through it. So if you have questions, you want to stop me, please do so, okay? But I do need you to understand your rights before we ask you about anything that happened in that home today, okay? All right. You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? I'm sorry?
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Anything you say may be used against you in court. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Would you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Absolutely? Okay. All right. So I need you to kind
That's the witness.
of, we're going to continue kind of down this path about how you all met. I know you met on Match.com.
Suspect. Is it?
And about 5 months of, what would it be, telephone, text, and...
We just started every other weekend.
They hit it off, moved in together, then went looking for a house to buy in Florida.
We had an offer on a short sale and waited and waited and waited, and it fell through. And then we closed on the house on Copeland in April of 2015.
So you guys own the house free and clear. Is your name only on it, or was it both of yours?
When we bought the house, we weren't married, and so we put it in a trust.
If this was a real situation, like he was innocent, that's what I mean by real. You would ask, why are you asking this? Help me find who hurt her, or like what happened to her. I don't want to talk about the house buying process. That just sounds insane. Like, I might be wrong in this, but really?
And we just completed the trust paperwork.
He put the house in his and his mother's names while leaving his wife out of it for,
Why
quote,
your mother?
planning and financial reasons. He asserts the decision was
Liar.
mutual, but whether Shanti actually knew about this or not is unclear.
And you've been, so once you moved to Florida, you've been living together the whole time, just home to home? Just with first with the folks, then Briarcliff, and then this residence? But you've been together the whole time? Have you ever broken up?
We had a couple fights, I think when we were living at Briarcliff.
Okay.
We spent a few nights apart.
He says that he just spent a few nights with his mom, then drifts off into a statement about how Shanti was dedicated to work. The detective will now cut him off and steer the line of questioning back to the argument.
But she's
So
a strong
when you
presence.
guys would argue, when you would go to your mom's, it was just because she was busy all the time, or what would the beef be?
Her work had a lot of stress involved,
Oh.
and she would sometimes. We always agreed, later that she was just overworked and tired and
So she'd get a little snippy or short or yell, scream, what?
just irritable.
Irritable.
Just irritability. And sometimes it's just
Completely avoiding any
it's
responsibility.
not really, I don't really do that. It's not really, I just stand there.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Completely
just,
avoiding any
I would just say, I
blame.
want to take a break. I just let it, a little cool down period, and every time we
Try
did
to
it, we
put
came
it onto
back. I
the
think we only did it
victim.
twice, but we were stronger.
Okay. And has that happened since you moved where you are now? Because now we've got the added stress of the renovation.
No, we love it. We love
Mm-hmm.
the,
Boy. Sure.
This is Keith Ory, the producer of the house flipping show that David wanted to be on.
When you would be interacting with the Torontos related to your work on the house and also the show, who was your primary point of contact?
Oh, Dave was. He would communicate her desires. I would see her, but it was more like Dave's full-time job, almost, I guess I would say.
Did you ever know during your time that you knew Dave to have any other job?
I was aware that he had explained to me that he had worked for a chemical company up north somewhere.
I actually never knew what Dave did for a living. When my husband had asked him, he said he was into sales, but I don't really know what that means.
David never worked in sales or at a chemical company. You're now about to see Keith explain that he insisted on having a formal sit-down with Shanti to make sure that she was fully on board.
It was difficult to get them both together, but I explained ultimately that we couldn't go forward if I wasn't able to sit down with them both.
Ultimately, you're able to get this sit-down scheduled. Tell the jury about that meeting.
I arrived at the house to meet Dave and Shanti, and she was, by my estimation, unhappy to be there. And it was in a sort of a tense state. It was obvious that she was unhappy with something, and
she has every right to be.
was only there as long as she absolutely had to be.
It should
and then left.
be both.
This all
of
occurred
us.
6 days before Shanti was murdered.
We love what we're doing to the house. We love the vision that we had for the house. It's totally, all she wanted was what she wanted so bad. It made me happy. It made her happy. It was a thing that we did together.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to quit her job when we got the house done, or just kind of, slowly phase out of it. She thought, a couple of times that she would really need to take a break, and definitely slow down, and definitely not add a whole lot more work. If she could do more if she did too. I'm sorry, I can't talk about it.
That's fine. And that's very.
His acting is so ass. And the way he's talking about it is just really odd.
Normal. That's very normal. Because you're not going to process this for a really long time. So
Well, I think he
really bad.
Now notice
What
how
is
quickly he
that?
manages to pull himself out of the depths of despair and into casually talking about his house flipping show.
We, Keith also does. Our lives are busy. I'm so sorry. I know you're asking simple questions, but Keith does a TV show, Home Improvement.
Keith, the guy you mentioned, Ori?
Yeah, that is.
Okay.
It's called Zombie House Living,
Keith asked them to be on the show,
which meant that we would get a lot of what they call trade-outs and promotional sponsorship to do.
Any financial incentive to do that?
Big. That's what they call trade-out. I'm sorry, that's what they call trade-outs. So their sponsors, that's one of the things I was working on yesterday, was putting together a list of the sponsorships, the windows, doors, cabinets, and so maybe instead of getting granite, you get quartz, or maybe instead of getting, middle range cabinets, you get high-end stuff. And
Why are you talking about this?
Working on kind of just an amazing open concept stairway in the middle of the house that was going to go all the way up to the loft.
And so they'd come in and start filming?
Mm-hmm.
Would they film you all or just the work?
No. Yeah, it's just the house. They're the stars.
Pay no attention to David's no. He fully understood that he would be featured prominently on the show as the main builder construction guy.
Absolutely.
The so-called stars he's talking about are the hosts. The detective will now establish a timeline.
So when she comes home Sunday, it's you, Jackson, and Shanti, and you just stay at home and have is it a pool get together?
We only have them every other Sunday. It's our family day, and we do like to have an early meal, watch a movie.
So, do you recall Sunday night about what time everybody goes to sleep, since you're all
We
in
go
the
to
same
bed
room?
early on school nights, so
Okay.
8:30 we're winding down, 9 o'clock lights are low.
Shanti's son gets picked up the next day at around 5 p.m.
5 p.m.-ish, okay. All right, and then do you guys go anywhere, do anything, or you stay at home?
I think we made dinner together that night. And,
So that would have been Monday night. Did you watch TV?
we did
Any idea what?
American Idol.
Okay, so you wake up Tuesday morning and you're in the garage on the couch?
Mm-hmm. I usually wait for her to come down. She came down after 7 o'clock, probably almost 7:30.
Shanti went back upstairs and David started doing chores around the house. He's now about to mention the last time he supposedly saw Shanti alive, and then break into another fake hysteric. Yet this time, he will get no reassuring feedback from the detective, and the charade will rapidly dissipate.
Pretty much just normal routine. And she came down again. That's how I saw it.
She came down again, and what happened?
Came down, and I've thought about it. I've tried to think exactly what time it is, but I don't know exactly. I would say probably 9:15. And the reason I know that is
She said she was going to the dentist, and he said he was going for a walk. He now attempts another fake cry, but gets ignored again.
And
Did you take the dogs for a walk?
I went for a walk
By yourself?
by myself.
And where'd you go?
I
Notice
went
how
for a
he
Lake Lucerne,
stopped.
and I went to Orange.
He comes back home and feeds the dogs.
That's all that I can remember until I went upstairs to see when we were going to pick up Jackson.
Okay, and what happens when you enter the home? Is anything unusual? When you enter the garage apartment?
So, I could hear the water is running, but it's not running. It's not like the sound of a shower running. It's just,
What?
it's trickling out of the spout.
Okay,
What are
and so
you
you walk toward the
saying?
water?
You mean
That you're hearing?
dripping?
Yeah, walking to the bathroom.
Okay.
Just in case you didn't catch the passive-aggressive nature of that response, here it is again without subtitles.
And so you walk toward the water that you're hearing?
Yeah, walking to the bathroom.
Okay.
Just look at David's face. Poor David really doesn't want to be getting grilled like this anymore. Keep in mind it's almost 11 p.m. He likely didn't get a whole lot of sleep the night before, and he's been acting his ass off all throughout the day. He'll at this point be exhausted and want nothing more than to get out of that police station. But he doesn't want to challenge the detective directly and risk losing her approval. Hence he throws out a weak little display of passive aggression to see if she'll pick up on the hint, but it of course gets ignored. She will simply continue pressing with an unsympathetic tone which will cause David to revert back to appeasement. He will then begin recounting the horrific circumstances under which he supposedly found Shanti. And as this unfolds, you will see a glaring disparity in David's emotional presentation.
The door's open, and what happens? What do you see?
I see her laying with her head in the right-hand corner, and it's just extremely awful, and it doesn't look natural. Obviously, she fell or something happened.
But you did shut off the water.
I did shut off the water and it drained, which tells me
God damn,
I could hear it draining when I pulled her out. I could hear. So that, okay, so I guess this is all weird, right? Because she's in there, the water's on, and it's draining. It doesn't make any. It just doesn't make sense.
And it's not on all the way. It's on how
like lukewarm, so just past half.
And she's face down. So the first thing you do is what, if you recall?
I reached out and grabbed.
He really switches up.
And touched her right arm. The water is rose-colored, so there's blood in the water itself. Mm-hmm. I can see a spot of blood.
And you pull her by her arms?
So I grabbed someplace on her arm. Tried to get kind of under it a little bit.
And you said she seemed stiff?
Yeah. Hard to move.
There's something so incredibly unnerving in the sound of the casual crunching of his snack as he recounts in precise detail the limp and lifeless body of his wife, so we'll spare you the rest of it.
I had to pull her and turn her a couple of times. Then she felt cold. You asked how she felt. She felt cold.
She felt cold.
I grabbed the,
You grabbed the what?
We had, when we did the bedding, we took the mattress cover off to wash it.
The detective asks David to draw a map for the purpose of illustrating the timeline of his movements. She will now shift the line of questioning and begin to gradually intensify the pressure.
When was the last time the two of you argued?
Very briefly on Saturday, right before we left.
The argument was over the renovation. Mm-hmm. David likely admitted to this because Shanti's son was there for it.
The upstairs floor was very wavy, and the point of contention probably was, do we tear all of that out and put in new structure and trusses so we have a perfectly flat floor and then a perfectly flat ceiling? But I don't think it's an argument if Shanti and I are both on the same page and we're both just in agreement and upset reasonably and justifiably upset that it's taking longer. Shanti and I aren't fighting about it. Mm-hmm. We're both upset about the same thing.
Does she feel as though you don't listen to her?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. She knows I listen.
Has any fight ever turned physical between the two of you?
No.
I guess, okay. Yes.
Has she ever hurt you, hit you, struck you, threw anything at you?
No.
No. Have you ever harmed her physically?
No.
David continues to pretend that he doesn't notice the accusatory nature of the questioning, so the detective will now intensify the pressure to a significant degree.
She seems to shed.
Her injuries to me, David, seem really significant. Mm-hmm. More significant than from a soft tissue fall. More significant than from me tripping and falling and hitting my head and being knocked unconscious.
She elaborates on the inconsistencies while David just sits there and nods.
The issue I'm having with it is I absolutely think that she was deceased before you left to go to the park.
She repeats what she said a few more times, while David just keeps doing what he's doing.
Okay, so I think that you've told us a significant amount of information. You've been very cooperative. But I also think that you've left some stuff out. Mm-hmm. And I think you've left some stuff out that is maybe something got out of hand, Maybe you didn't mean for it to happen. Maybe you got upset. Maybe, but there's something that happened between the two of you before you left that house. Because she was deceased, or on her way to being deceased, before you left that house. Now, if there's an explanation, I want to hear it.
I told you everything.
But you've left out something, David, because this woman has significant injuries. Okay, this is not from a fall. Did you harm Shanti in any way?
Absolutely not.
Did you choke her?
Absolutely not.
Did you strangle her?
Without question, no.
Did you beat her?
No.
Did you hit her with anything?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Do you
Why
have
is
injuries?
the way he is answering
not.
changing?
I do have some scratches from the bromeliads and from the bougainvillea.
Should be no, no, no,
I do trim
no.
them myself.
Aside from the scratches from his plants, David had no injuries that could indicate a struggle.
Plants.
But this might explain why.
You noticed a single earring on the nightstand?
A single what?
A single diamond earring on the nightstand.
Yes.
And what was the significance of that?
Looks like she removed it before bed and didn't get a chance to remove the other one.
Because you believe that's when the attack occurred.
On the edge of the bed, where the blood was found on the side rail. Yes. And I think when she turned to take that earring out, she didn't see it coming.
Would you mind, just for me to be able to say David is a perfect gentleman and is in the clear and did not harm his wife, would you mind taking a polygraph and proving that to us?
Absolutely.
Okay. Would that be a possibility? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
The detective asks David if he wants another water, to which he says, sure. So she brings him a water and tells him they'll be right back with a polygraph machine. But instead of coming right back, they leave him in there for just over 2 hours, during which time they decide not to proceed with the polygraph, but simply ramp up the confrontation.
A polygraph is completely useless in court. There's really no reason to take it anyways, other than maybe just getting enough to keep him in there longer.
Hi. You doing okay?
Yeah, it's just,
Did you sleep a little?
I did.
I know you've got to be exhausted. Or at least mentally. Yeah.
I just want to point out some things to you that I think are unusual. There's so many, I really don't know where to begin, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that I find that the living arrangement, I find to be completely unusual for you to be primarily living downstairs.
I'm not primarily living downstairs.
Well, sleeping.
What I said is that I sleep down there, but I don't go down there till we're done with dinner, we're done watching TV, or we're done for the evening.
Okay, just hear me out.
Okay.
So
The point is,
you don't go upstairs during the day while she's working. You leave her alone, and
Right.
then
Not entirely. I do go up there.
Okay.
But I don't work up there while she's on the phone because it's distracting. It's her office. I think that I've explained extremely well. She didn't sleep. She did, but you said.
He continues defending the fact that he was exiled to the garage.
I think it's an adjustment and a transition that she didn't feel like she could make right now because she couldn't afford the time that it would take.
But she's sleeping in the only part of the residence that's semi-comfortable.
Yeah.
You're sleeping in the garage with the dogs.
how do you explain this woman's head being swollen, her eyes being black?
And would never, ever hurt her.
So when you pulled her out of the tub, you agreed with me that the water came out of the tub. There's not a spot of water on the floor, David. The carpet isn't wet. The carpet isn't wet from where she was pulled out of the bathtub, sopping wet, all the way around to the front of the couch. The carpet's not wet. There's no blood on the carpet.
Notice how little David moves compared to the detective. It doesn't correlate with anything in particular. It's just sort of interesting to watch.
He's not saying
My
anything.
guess is she wasn't treating you very well. And there's only so much anyone can take.
I know they're trying to
Really
do this to make him say something, but
I appreciate the very kind things that you've said.
I'm missing what you're saying because of your suit that you're moving, but I'm kind of missing it. It's really loud, but I missed what you said because you're talking so loud.
I'm sorry, it's falling out. I appreciate the things that you've said and the genuine
what?
consideration and thoughtfulness behind it.
David, you killed this woman.
I cooperated so I could give you all the information and all.
You cooperated because you thought that
the
your
backstory.
language would.
What is this? What does he think this is gonna do? Thank you for accusing me?
Would overwhelm
No,
us,
not
and you
at all.
thought you could pull the wool over our
I
eyes.
don't think there was any effort to do that.
Yeah, there was.
All of this, all these tangents, all this flowery,
The tangents
fancy
were
language,
answers to
all the
questions that you
details.
asked. To questions that you asked.
You know, you fake cried for about 7 or 8 hours today.
Yeah.
Not one tear came out of your eyes. Not one. Not one. Not on scene with the officers. Not in this room. You have fake cried over this woman's death since we made contact with you for hours. And every single time you fake cried, we wrote it down. Not one tear came out of your eyes. Not one.
Nope.
Did they actually?
Okay. We've been extremely patient with you for a very long time. I am losing my patience at this point because there is not a lick of remorse for what you did to this woman. Not even a little bit. You're staring at a woman you're telling us you're in love with, and you've done nothing the whole time but close your eyes, huddle up, and protect your own ass.
Yep.
So we're just going to prove you're full of shit and solve this case. And I'm glad you think that's funny. I'm glad you think that's funny.
The investigators would exit the room shortly after this moment, at 4:56 a.m. David would then sit there for a little over 2 hours before finally asking to go home. But before being driven back by one of the officers, they asked him if
what?
they could take his photograph. He cheerfully obliged. Judging by his expression, he may have thought he had just gotten away with murder, but a grand jury indicted him 4 months later, and he was arrested at his mother's house. When he was
They
told
actually let him go home? I paused on a bad screen.
he was facing life imprisonment and that the evidence against him was overwhelming, he started acting crazy and went for the insanity defense. He was then sent to a maximum security psych unit, where he spent 5 years before a judge ruled him competent to stand trial. This is what he looked like on the day he was transferred back to jail. His trial
he
began on
looks
October
crazy.
12th and lasted 6 days. He maintained his plea of not guilty, with his official defense being that he was out of the house walking the dogs while an unknown intruder broke in and murdered Shanti.
You heard about the sleeping arrangement. You heard how the defendant was sleeping in the garage with the dogs while Shanti was staying in the essential, one-bedroom apartment separate and apart from him. And this had been going on, for over a year. This was an intentional killing. A random stranger that comes into a house isn't going to, take the time that it takes to strangle a person, to move them to a tub. Not take anything? Doesn't make any sense. Leave no sign behind, no fingerprints, no DNA? That doesn't make any sense. You have the severe beating of Shanti. You have the injuries to both sides of her face. You have the fractured skull, the swollen shut eye, the damaged eye on the other side. That you saw the intense bruising and bleeding in both sides of her mouth. This was a beating. So at some point in that beating, the defendant, and you can infer this from the facts, intended to cause the death. And he did it with a premeditated design. We ask that you convict him of first-degree murder. Thank you.
The defense mainly tries to evoke empathy for the defendant, but it ends up just roasting the fake crazy out of him.
Shanti's the only source of the income. She's the breadwinner. He does nothing other than take care of the pool and the dogs. It's about circumstantial evidence, pure supposition, all steered by Teresa Sprague, who prejudged this case based upon a phone call received from her from an officer at the scene about these crocodile tears. This is just a hunch, ladies and gentlemen. A hunch. If you hear horses, if you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras, sort of thing. Because that's the point. You don't get to fit a square peg in a round hole because it's convenient. And that's what happened here. With the rush to judgment, with the confirmational bias, those two detectives went into a room with David Tronis and worked him over. He sat there for 16 hours, bared his soul to them, literally and figuratively, told them what he knew, told them what he saw. The government's the one spinning here. The government's the one taking the insignificant and stacking them into a pyramid, and I'm confident that after carefully deliberating, that you'll come back and return the only just verdict in this case, and that's a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Verdict reads, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. So it says we all, dated at Orange County, Florida, on the 18th day of October, 2023, signed by the foreperson.
In the midst of this tragedy, Shanti's impact as a mother was shown through her son Jackson. His victim impact statement was both heartrending and dignified.
My family and I have been waiting for about 5 years for justice. I miss her so much. I would have never thought the day before was the last time I would see my mother alive. I miss the times where we would go to Universal, or just the simple times, like walking the dogs or going to the park. She was the best mom I could ever ask for. That's it.
Defense, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jackson. Mr. Tronis, anything you wish to say prior to sentencing?
Good.
I think you just said no, is that right? Then in this case, the court will adjudicate you guilty, will sentence you to life imprisonment. Luck to you, sir.
Thank goodness.
And the court will be in recess.
This is his latest mugshot. He is currently being housed at the Graceville Correctional Facility in maximum security, where he is expected to remain.
Oh man. I love true crime, but it's so hard to watch. Oh. If you enjoyed the video, I don't know if that's the right word. Make sure to go check out JCS. Thankfully, it wasn't AI, and it seems better than the last one was. I'm glad this dude got life in prison. Honestly, probably deserved. I'm not gonna say anything, but hopefully the next video is lighter. Until next time, bye bye.